My name's Richard Ash. I'm the president of the Ward 2 Civic Association. Welcoming you all to our candidates talk. It's going to be a debate style hour and 15 minutes or so. We're going to do, we have 10 questions that were submitted by constituents and voters via our Facebook page and our email account, and also to us personally. We crafted them to make sure that they cover the areas that we think people want to know about and your respective candidates, their opinions on. We have Anthony Andronico, who's the incumbent Ward 2 City Councilor, to my right, and Steve Perdios, Ward 2 candidate for City Council, to my left. Anthony is going to start with an introduction, and then Steve will close at the end. We're going to give each of them 3 minutes for an intro. We have 10 questions lined up. Give each of them 2 minutes to answer each respective question. I will come in and repeat the question between each of the candidates. And then at the end, we will do a Q&A from the audience, should there be time. I want to thank Coffee Break Cafe for the generous donation of muffins and donuts and coffee in the back right corner. We also have t-shirts for sale. The muffins will be free at the end because I do not want to take them home. So, thank you to QATV for taping. I will let everybody know when it will be airing, hoping sometime this week. So with that being said, we're going to give Anthony 3 minutes to open, and then Steve 3 minutes to open. Thank you.
Thank you, Richard, and thank you to all of you for being here today. I sincerely appreciate you all taking some time out of your Saturday morning to learn more about my background, my experience, as well as that of my opponent, to make an educated choice when the time comes on November 2nd. So as you all know, my name is Anthony Andronico, and for the past 4 years, I've had the privilege of serving you in my hometown and local office. As a school committee member, as vice chair of the school committee, and for the last year as your Ward 2 counselor. And although those roles have changed, my goal has always remained the same. To provide a high level of constituent services, prioritize community input in decision-making, and advocate for policies that provide direct benefits to those who have already chosen to call Quincy home. And when I was sworn in as your ward counselor in January, I got right to work for you and launched the constituent services website, anthonyandronico.com, to provide a new avenue to connect during the height of the COVID-19 pandemic. And the website has since served as a central location where residents can sign up for the monthly e-newsletter to stay informed. You can request assistance with an issue, and you can fill out a survey to provide direct feedback on the issues. And after hearing directly from you through that survey, through your emails, your phone calls, I was able to take your feedback with me to City Hall and prioritize the items that you highlighted. And in just a few short months, I'd like to go over some of the things that we've accomplished together. We've pushed for and passed an infrastructure plan that will lead to over 33,000 feet of roadway to be repaved in Ward 2 over the next decade. We called for public input into how $46.3 million worth of federal relief funds should be spent by the administration, and for a full accounting of where any of that funding had already been allocated so the public understands where we can make additional investments. We authored a resolution demanding the immediate shutdown of the Weymouth compressor station after it experienced multiple unplanned toxic gas releases. We partnered with the mayor's office and the state to address COVID vaccine supply chain issues to ensure that our seniors got a mobile vaccination clinic at 1000 Southern Artery and our other housing buildings. We worked with the Parks Department and neighborhood advocacy groups to conceptualize some ideas to reinvigorate Faxon Park. And most importantly, we've asked the tough questions at City Hall and opposed spending proposals when they didn't provide direct direct benefits to current residents. So I'm looking forward to the discussion tonight, and I sincerely appreciate your time. Thank you.
Not quite as tall as he is. All right, we good? All right. Hi, everyone. My name is Steve Perdios, and I'm running for Ward 2 City Council. I want to start by thanking the Rich here and the staff at the volunteers for the Ward 2 Civic Association for putting on this great event on today. So thank you very much. I want to talk to you a little bit about myself. I want to tell you, I guess, 3 things I want to go over. I want to tell you a little bit about me, my background, my family. I want to talk to you about my 26 years of experience as a volunteer and community activist. And I want to tell you a little bit about my vision going forward. I only have 3 minutes, so I'm going to try to incorporate the vision throughout the questions as we receive them today. So when I was just 6 months old, my family moved from South Boston to Quincy and my parents bought a house on Arnold Street, where they raised me and my 3 older brothers, Dan, Dave, and Don, and my parents still live there today. I went to Pollard Elementary School, Quincy Point Junior High, and I graduated from Quincy High in 1986. I went to Northeastern University at night, and I joined the apprenticeship program for the Sheet Metal Union. And in 1995, I graduated from Northeastern University with a degree in civil engineering. I've been working as a civil engineer and drinking water, designing drinking water, stormwater, and sanitary wastewater systems for the last 25 years. I married my wife, Courtney, over here. Candidate for school committee over here, Courtney Perdios. We married in 2004 at St. Joseph's Church. We bought a home on Ruggles Street, and we have 3 beautiful girls. Casey, 13 right here, MJ, 11, and Hannah, 10. Say hi, girls. I'm the luckiest guy in the world because of my family. I have a fantastic family, and I'm absolutely the luckiest guy in the world, so thank you. A little bit about myself, my experience over the last 26 years. I'm a lifelong parishioner at St. Joseph's Church. I taught CCD and confirmation there for 17 years, started youth group programs, all kinds of programs for the youth over at St. Joseph's Church. Been there a long, long time. And I've done a lot of work for the environment in Quincy. In 2000, I started the Quincy Environmental Network, and I've been involved in a lot of great projects over the years. But one that I'm most proud about is one that will have a lasting impact far into the future is the development of the Community Preservation Act. So in 2006, I led the effort to collect 4,000 signatures to put the Community Preservation Act on the ballot in Quincy, and it passed in every precinct and every ward across the city. The Community Preservation Act generates $1.6 million per year, and it goes towards great projects all around the city. I can't see that. 30 seconds, you tell me? Okay, thank you. I was the chair of the Community Preservation Committee for 10 years. I was on the Community Preservation Committee for 10 years. I was the chair for 4, something I'm very, very proud of. So with my last 30 seconds, I'll just close by saying, I'm a homeowner, I'm a taxpayer, husband and a father, a lifelong resident of Ward 2, and my background as a community activist and volunteer gives me unique qualifications to be a next Ward 2 city councilor, and I'm committed to being responsive to you and what your issues. I'll work every day to make your issues my concern. Thank you very much.
Thank you both. Just some housekeeping. Nancy Delisle is the clerk of the Ward 2 Civic Association. She is keeping time in the back. And we have 3 school committee members in the audience today. Kathy Hubley's here. Doug Gutrow is the school committee member and also on the ballot for re-election, and Courtney Perdios is the school committee member and also on the ballot for re-election on November 2nd. Thank you all for joining. I'm going to jump into our first question. Anthony will start, and they'll have 2 minutes each to answer it. I'll repeat the question in between, and then Steve will start on question 2. Fiona Coughlin is the vice president of the Ward 2 Civic Association, and she will be asking question 2, and we'll switch off. So this is question 1. Again, Anthony will answer first, and he has 2 minutes. The Enbridge compressor station in Weymouth is a health and safety risk for the residents of Ward 2. As Ward 2 councilor, how will you advocate for your constituents regarding this and other environmental issues within the ward? I'll repeat the question. The Enbridge compressor station in Weymouth is a health and safety risk for the residents of Ward 2. As Ward 2 councilor, how will you advocate for your constituents regarding this and other environmental issues within the ward?
Thank you, Richard, for the question. Well, just a bit of background about what I've been up to really the last 4 or 5 years. My day job, I work up in the state senate for State Senator Patrick O'Connor, who represents Weymouth in the South Shore. And throughout that work, some of the things that we've been able to do, and myself working behind the scenes, is we got 30 out of the 40 state senators to sign on to a letter demanding that this station not be set. We were able to fight with Speaker Mariano to finally get an air quality monitoring station in the Fall River Basin for the first time. The numbers that were used, the air quality numbers to get the compressor station to go through, were the numbers they used from the Blue Hills monitoring station, which is 9 miles away. So all of the pollution that we've experienced throughout the decades within the Fall River Basin has been based off of numbers that aren't getting an accurate read for the pollution levels that are here in Quincy. Just this past week, I met with our Emergency Management Director, Ali Sleeman, to go over an incident impact report and plan about what do we do if there's a blowdown at the station, what do we do if there's a serious incident where do people evacuate, and take it from there. So that's sort of the work I've been able to do behind the scenes. Again, my very first resolution as a member of the City Council was to demand that the station be shut down. But moving forward, it's going to be about continuing to pursue the court cases that Quincy has been able to fund to keep this thing going. We've been fighting it for over 5 years. It's insane to put a station over there. It's on 4 acres of land. It's next to a $240 million bridge. It's the first one on in an environmental justice zone. It's on a waterway. The list goes on and on and on about why this is a bad project. And as far as what I'll do moving forward, it's exactly what I've been doing the last 4 years. So I appreciate your time. Thank you.
Repeat the question. Question 1 is the Enbridge compressor station in Weymouth is a health and safety risk for the residents of Ward 2. As Ward 2 councillor, how will you advocate for your constituents regarding this and other environmental issues within the ward? Steve?
Okay, so this is obviously a terrible thing to have in your backyard. There seemed to be a lot of political support against this. Every mayor and state rep that could be found lined up against this, and still it was built. And that's frustrating. And what that tells you is that there isn't an infrastructure in place to stop something like this. So even the governor, I think the governor had come out against this. So there was widespread support against this, and still there was no teeth in our laws to stop it from going in. So what has to happen is a structural change to our laws needs to take place at the state level in order to fix this, so that this doesn't happen again, so that we can have more control over it, so that other communities don't end up with these kind of fights down the line. I've been advocating for environmental issues in Quincy for 25 years. I'll continue to advocate for them. It's one of my top priorities. I mentioned the Community Preservation Act that I brought in before. I've been involved in 6 to 8 different open space acquisitions around the city. My main focus for the environment has been land use. When we knock on doors, almost everybody is frustrated with the development in our city. We have proposals coming up all the time where a single-family home, two-family home is torn down and 12 units are jammed in. And it's something that has to come to an end. And that's something that we can address through zoning changes. So I'll continue I'll stand behind whatever's out there to fight against the compressor that's already built, but we need some systemic change overall in our state laws to prevent one of these from going in anywhere else. And we need some zoning law changes here locally in order to prevent bad developments in our community. So, thank you.
Hi, everyone. All right, so question 2. It has been discussed that a possible use of the federal infrastructure bill's funds could go to improving water, sewer, and electrical lines at the site of the former Four River Shipyard in preparation for future development. Are you in favor of this, and what type of development would you like to see there?
What is this, 90 seconds? 2 minutes. 2 minutes. Fantastic. Okay, so the question is infrastructure at the Four River Shipyard. Okay, so the reason the Four River Shipyard isn't getting developed is because it's what's called it's a deep water channel. Okay, and I'm thinking it's 3 letters. It's DPA. Deep. I'll get back to you on what the letters I'm blanking on. It's a designation at the federal level because of it's a deep channel that leads up to the Four River Shipyard. So it has to do with preventing an attack from overseas. We need to have places where we're going to bring in deep, large boats to access the Four River Shipyard. So the reason the Four River Shipyard isn't being developed is because it has this designation. I believe it's a DPA designation. And until that is lifted, it's going to pretty much look the way it does now for a long, long time. So finding funds to improve water, sewer drainage, which is what I do for a living, that's not a holdup to development of the Four River Shipyard. And honestly, I would love to see the shipyard developed. Sure, there's going to be a a host of cleanup issues, hazardous material issues there. But when they first sold it to us, they said that it was going to be a waterfront, down almost like a Marina Bay down here in the point, and that would have been great. And that was cheap as I can't remember. That must have been 15 years ago when Cork bought that. So it really hasn't gone anywhere. But whatever we can do to get it going, I really think that it has to do with removing the DPA designation. Deep port, it's deep port something or other. But until that is lifted, it's going to remain pretty much as is because it has to be water dependent. And so you have cars coming in from the ocean there, and they use that at Cork. So I think this is really something that Ron Mariano needs to address. I think it's something that could be done if there's political interest in that. So thank you.
Just going to repeat the question one more time. It has been discussed that a possible use of the federal infrastructure bill's funds could go to improving water, sewer, and electrical lines at the site of the Fore River Shipyard in preparation for future development. Are you in favor of this, and what type of development would you like to see there?
Thank you. Well, considering that this would be a federal bill, the state really doesn't have that much of a role in terms of the funding infrastructure for that. But on the federal level, when you're talking about infrastructure investment, one of the things that we have to pay attention to is the city had to settle with the EPA for $100 million to spend on our water and sewer infrastructure throughout the city, and we need to make that capital investment by the end of 2034. So I think before we move forward and we say that we should be developing more and more land, adding to traffic, adding to congestion, we should be seriously considering the infrastructure that we already have and making sure that's in a condition to be successful in the years ahead. So that's step one. Step two beyond that is in terms of development is you need to be having community meetings with folks. You need to be making sure that the type of development that any development would happen at the Fore River Shipyard is one that we would like. Now, something that I sort of compare that site to is in South Weymouth, the former air station over there, where it's now Union Point. They had a problem where they had a master developer come in and said they were going to do all these nice things, and they still don't have the infrastructure that they need to support all of the residents that are there and all the residents that they'd like to see over there. So there needs to be first just an understanding of what we currently have in place, and then if we want to talk about investment for residents who don't currently live here, I think that's a conversation we can have at a later date. Thank you.
Thank you both. Question 3, Anthony will start. Ward 2's community elementary schools, Clifford Marshall and Lincoln Hancock, are the only 2 of the 11 elementary schools in the city where their 5th graders attend their middle schools. As a city councilor, you help set the budget for the Quincy Public School System. Do you believe the 5th graders should move back to the elementary schools, and what steps will you take to make that happen? I'll repeat the question. Ward 2's community elementary schools, Clifford Marshall and Lincoln Hancock, are the only 2 of the 11 elementary schools in the city where their 5th graders attend the middle schools. As a city councilor, you help set the budget for the Quincy Public School System. Do you believe the 5th graders should move back to the elementary schools, and what steps will you take to make that happen? Anthony.
Thank you. And well, as a former school committee member, this is something that we've talked about for a few years. I know my former colleagues will attest to this, that we've moved this item into subcommittee on the school committee to talk about it and see kind of what we can do in terms of space. But the more direct answer to that question is yes, 5th grade should be moved back into the elementary school to make it equitable across the city of Quincy. In terms of a city council role and what may need to be done, that's really talking about a capital investment. And you're talking about bonding money to either add additional space, or it just really is to add additional space if the school committee isn't able to shift around other programming to fit the space for the 5th graders to go back. So as with every spending proposal, that means I have to listen to the constituents and see, do you want to have this trade-off where we're investing in this capital program? This could mean more within your bottom line in taxes as far as what you pay. So it is difficult to make those capital investments while still kind of holding the line on taxes and making sure that Quincy remains affordable for those who live here. And as with any spending proposal, that's something that I'm always mindful of.
Just to repeat question 3, and also I do have an edit to it. Ward 2's community elementary school, Clifford Marshall, as well as Lincoln Hancock, are the only two of the 11 elementary schools in the city where their fifth graders attend middle schools. As a city councilor, you help set the budget for the Quincy Public School System. Do you believe the fifth graders should move back to the elementary schools, and what steps will you take to make this happen? Steve?
I have to temper myself, okay, because this question gets me very, very upset, okay? This happened 20 years ago. 20 years ago, they moved our fifth graders out of Marshall and they moved them up to Point Webster. And it was wrong 20 years ago and it's wrong today. And my wife and I have been advocating against this for a long time. It's time to move them back. It's time to get our fifth graders back into our elementary school setting. It's a much more nurturing environment. You're going to get higher grades with kids when 10-year-olds are in elementary school. This is another problem within the city where we kind of throw our hands up. Oh, there's nothing we can do. It's too big an issue. It's too monumental. It needs to be solved. The solution is to move the kindergartners into the Della Casa, I'm pronouncing right, the Della Casa building. There's an opportunity there to move kindergartners out, then there would be enough room at Clifford Marshall. So that's just one option. Okay, there's other options. The problem was that we had two elementary schools in Quincy Point. We had Daniel Webster and we had Pollard in the day. When we got rid of both of those, we ended up with one middle school, the new building, which is now 22 years old, and that wasn't built big enough. And that mistake happened, 25 years ago. And so it needs to be something that's solved immediately, not something that we continue to kick the can down the road. So am I out of time? Am I good? 30 seconds, fantastic. So I mentioned to you that there's one way that we can fix it right there. There's an inequity, yes. Out of 11 schools, 9 of them have elementary school right up until right up through 5th grade. Hannah's a 10-year-old, and my 13-year-old is right there. There's no reason to have 10-year-olds in with 13-year-olds. It's not acceptable. So everything that can be done needs to be put on the table to get this moved back.
All right, question 4. The city has seen a boom in housing development over the last 10 years, but not much has been created in the low-income / workforce housing category. What should the city do to improve these numbers? And do you see Ward 2 as a place for these types of development? So I'm just going to repeat it one more time. The city has seen a boom in housing development over the last 10 years, but not much has been created in the low-income / workforce housing category. What should the city do to improve these numbers, and do you see Ward 2 as a place for these types of development? Steve?
Well, of course, Ward 2 is the place for this type of a development, because we don't have the chip on our shoulder that other parts of the city might have, where they don't want this kind of development. But we're in the shadow of the shipyard, and so we want this kind of development. That's okay. However, we already have something on the books that can rectify this problem. It just needs a little tweaking. So I'm going to give you 3 things that need to be corrected. First of all, we have a affordable housing law that allows developers to, instead of building affordable housing, they can kick money into the Affordable Housing Trust Fund, which is fine until you really need the affordable housing, which we do. So the first step would be to eliminate that option under 12%. So every year we calculate what's our percentage of affordable housing units in the city. And if that number is below, today it's 10%, right? The second thing I would do would kick that up to 12%, okay? So at 12%, anything less than that, the developer no longer has an option of kicking money into the Affordable Housing Trust Fund. They have to build the units. That's the first thing that I change. And then the definition, because I think the question asked about working, how is that phrase, working?
Low-income /
workforce housing. So there needs to be a better definition within the law of what workforce is and what affordable housing is, so that we get, what we're talking about are teachers, like first-year teachers, firemen, first-year firemen, coming in, can they afford to live in the city? And so we need to have housing where there's enough stock that's at a reasonable level so that they can actually stay within Quincy and they don't have to move to Randolph and further south. We want Quincy residents to be able to afford to stay here. So changing the affordable housing law from 10% to 12% and eliminating the option of kicking money into the Affordable Housing Trust Fund, what that'll do is it'll create more affordable housing and then also to have a better definition of what that is. So
one more time. The city has seen a boom in housing development over the last 10 years, but not much has been created in the low-income/workforce housing category. What should the city do to improve these numbers? And do you see Ward 2 as a place for these types of development? Anthony.
So when I first started as the ward councilor, one of the first conversations I had was actually with Councilor Palmucci about affordable housing within the city, and we brought in a couple folks from the city just to talk about the certain percentage that we have in affordable housing stock within the city. So every 10 years when the census comes out, you have to have at least 10% of your housing stock be affordable housing, and you're kind of always chasing that number. So now that the numbers have been set for 2020, I believe Quincy is under that 10% threshold for affordable housing units, which means that we need to be building more affordable housing moving forward. It means doing things like the Watson over on East Howard Street, which is a great public-private partnership that's workforce-level housing. And it is interesting when we're talking about the affordability of housing, that workforce housing is if you make $70,000 a year, you qualify for that affordable housing in Quincy. It's getting more and more expensive to live here in the city, whether you own or you rent. And absolutely, Ward 2 is the place where we should be having more affordable housing. I'm looking forward next week to going down to Winter Street with NeighborWorks Housing Solutions to open up a new affordable housing building. This is absolutely the place where we should be pushing for more projects like that. I appreciate the partnership with the organizations that step up to build them, and I do appreciate that when there is development, the developers who actually build those affordable units within that development. It creates a great mixed society, and it creates a better place to call home within Quincy. So Ward 2 is the place for it, and I believe it's just putting more pressure on developers to build the housing, and it's pushing for more projects for the affordable housing projects for like NeighborWorks. Thanks.
Question 5. Similarly, the Washington Street corridor has seen difficulties opening and retaining commercial businesses. As Ward 2 councilor, what steps will you take to bring businesses to this area, and how do you plan to juxtapose the sustainability and preservation of the same? Anthony?
No, it's funny, but just on the way over here, going by the intersection of Washington Street and Southern Artery, right on that corner is a big empty parking lot. It's got overgrown grass. It's got broken windows, and I think there was a proposal 4 or 5 years ago to build a massive housing project there that the neighborhood didn't want. So when we're talking about development, whether it's from there stretching on down the rest of Washington Street, it's what types of businesses, what types of development does the neighborhood actually want to see there. Part of it on the other end is working through the city to put pressure on those who have blighted buildings, whether they're boarded up or there's glass shattered, they're just not being a good property owner. So moving forward, I mean, it's not just specific to the Washington Street corridor, it's the downtown too. It's all throughout Quincy. It's what types of businesses do we want to see, and I think for the last 10 years, we've seen plenty of restaurants and we've seen plenty of salons and that type of thing. But people are looking for something else, I think, and I think the Washington Street corridor would be a great place for some new types of businesses to call home within the city. Thanks.
Just to repeat question 5, similarly, the Washington Street corridor has seen difficulties opening and retaining commercial businesses. As Ward 2 councilor, what steps will you take to bring businesses to this area, and how do you plan to juxtapose sustainability and preservation of the same? Steve?
So I recall when Councilor Raimondi was city councilor, they had a Washington Quarter business association, and they tried to address this issue as well. And then a few years ago, I remember Councilor Kroll with the mayor and Mariano with a photo op at the Dairy Queen, and it was more talk about what are we going to do about this corridor. And it comes up every now and then, and it seems to be another intractable problem with around the city, where nobody's put together a concrete plan to really address this problem. There's no systemic plan to really fix the corridor. If you drive along Washington Street, it's very unattractive. I don't know why we would want to put more buildings in there. It's a rather unattractive corridor. There's very few street trees. The sidewalks look terrible. There was some additional pavement striping done for the bike lane, but really this is a situation where we have the power base in the city on the northern end of the city, and the southern end of the city is just not getting the attention that it really needs. And so the solution for this is to bring a bit more passion to the problem, to bring a bit more requirements of our elected officials to actually put something together, something concrete that's going to bring in more businesses, that where somebody's going to say, hey, this is a beautiful area. Why wouldn't I want to open up a business along here, other than the nail salons that we seem to just attract all over the place? But we have a target up in North Quincy because there's a huge amount of investment up there to bring that in. And so if we're going to try to actually handle this situation reasonably, we've got to look at the whole corridor from City Hall to the Fore River Bridge, and we have to say what's working, what isn't working, and actually put a plan and some investment into it to actually make the corridor better, because it's really unattractive, and who would really want to open up a business there? So I say that we work a little bit harder and put a little more passion into that.
Okay, question 6. With the opening of the gate at Quincy Adams MBTA station, parking was a major concern for the residents of the Penns Hill neighborhood. This led to resident parking stickers and enforcement. Are you in favor of this type of parking program being rolled out to other parts of Ward 2 and possibly the rest of the city? So one more time. That's a mouthful. With the opening of the gate at Quincy Adams MBTA station, parking was a major concern for the residents of the Penns Hill neighborhood. This led to resident parking stickers and enforcement. Are you in favor of this type of parking program being rolled out to other parts of Ward 2 and possibly the rest of the city? Steve?
Okay, so the opening of the gate at Adams T is a huge success. In my opinion, that's a big win. That's a big win for not just for the community, but for the environment. You're encouraging people from the neighborhood to walk to the T, to get on the T, and take public transportation into Boston instead of putting more cars on the roadway. So there's a win for the residents, there's wins for commuters, there's wins for the MBTA. It's a win all around. And my understanding is that the parking headaches have not materialized. The concerns about the parking have not really materialized. And so I believe that this is a win all around. And so, yeah, I definitely support that. I believe the question is asking about using this in other parts of the city. We have parking stickers. Like if you don't have a driveway, you can go up to the police department and you can get a sticker, and that'll allow you to park on the street. We actually don't have public parking on the streets in Quincy, so parking is an issue everywhere you go. Parking and getting a fire truck down the road, because people are parking on both sides. I think we're seeing on some streets where parking is being switched to just one side. I think we're seeing some improvements there. I think what's really needed here some real education campaign within the street by street about what is allowed and what isn't allowed, just to educate the neighbors. And we have a lot of apartments, so people are moving in and out of the city all the time, especially in Ward 2. So people aren't really concerned or aren't really aware of what the regulations are. So definitely some education, but if necessary, we need to bring the police in to ticket at night to get people off the streets so that people are using their driveway more frequently. That's a concern that I'm hearing all the time from knocking on doors about people parking on the street and not being able to get up and down properly. So Thank you.
With the opening of the gate at Quincy Adams MBTA station, parking was a major concern for the residents of the Penns Hill neighborhood. This led to resident parking stickers and enforcement. Are you in favor of this type of parking program being rolled out to other parts of Ward 2 and possibly the rest of the city? Anthony?
Thank you. And I think this might be a good time to point out that Councilor Elijah Noldabona has joined us here tonight. Because a few years ago, I remember going to those community meetings when we were talking about the parking sticker option over at Quincy Adams. We reached there together, and there was a really big concern that people on that street on Independence Ave, on Fairchild over there, we're going to have people just going in and out, parking on their street. Similar issues that we've seen around Wollaston Station. But that sticker program in that neighborhood has been very successful, and I think that although it has been successful, it should stay where it is. I think that around the T stations, that's where you need it. I don't want to see us turn into a Somerville or a Cambridge where anyone that visits their friend has to put in a visitor parking pass in the window, or you can't have a friend park on the street or something like that. And I do appreciate the point made by my opponent that the parking on one side of the street only has improved. I've been really proud to work with a few residents to implement one side of the street parking only right around the corner on Lebanon Street. We've done it on Burns Ave as well. And it's always a concern that you want emergency response services to be able to get down your street if there's an accident, if there's an emergency. So parking is always an issue, but you always listen to the neighborhood because what parking issues are actually in your neighborhood and what can be the best solution to any issues that you have. So I think while that program is great, it should stay where it is around the T stations. Thanks.
Thank you. Welcome, Noel DeBona. Anthony, thanks for that. Noel's at-large city councilor up for re-election on November 2nd, for those of you who don't know. Question 7. During the summer months, Ward 2 saw issues regarding youth damaging property at and around the neighborhood playgrounds. How can this be stopped, and what can the city do to increase programming for children in the middle school, high school age range? Again, during the summer months, Ward 2 saw issues regarding youth damaging property at and around the neighborhood playgrounds. How can this be stopped, and what can the city do to increase programming for children in the middle school and high school age range? Anthony?
Thank you. So just after I took over in January as the Ward 2 councilor, we actually got a new Ward 2 community police officer, Officer Cleary, who I've had the chance to talk with many times just throughout the last few months. Prior to becoming the community police officer, his beat was actually Quincy Point. So he had a good background on some of the issues that we were facing. And last summer was probably the worst summer that we had, not in 2021, but in 2020. We had issues with the teenage bike gangs. We had issues with teenagers setting off fireworks in the middle of the night in the Clifford Marshall parking lot and waking up all of the neighborhood. We had incidents where the police officers had to actually take away a bike from a teenager, bring it to the police station, and that's something that you never want to see or get to. But as far as actually addressing that type of behavior in educational programs, to be perfectly honest, those teens aren't Quincy teens. They're not from Quincy, they're not from Quincy Point. But as far as educational programs go, I think Quincy Public Schools does a great job of teaching our students right from wrong. They're doing a good job catching up with social and emotional learning, and I think it's just continuing on that pathway to make sure our students are set up for success. Thanks.
To repeat the question, during the summer months, Ward 2 saw issues regarding youth damaging property at and around the neighborhood playgrounds. How can this be stopped, and what can the city do to increase programming for children in the middle school / high school age range? Steve?
Thank you, Rich. So I've been involved in youth group programs for 25 years. With my work up at St. Joseph's Church, I taught confirmation and CCD there, youth group programs, started them at St. Joseph's. I coach baseball and hockey with my girls. Youth programs are vital to the community. In regards to what happened in the past 12 months or so, I guess I sort of categorize them two separate ways. You know, we all went through a collective difficult time, okay? COVID really hurt everybody, okay? So I think what we were seeing a lot of were kids acting out. It's okay. Knock that out. We saw kids acting out. They needed to find a way, an outlet, and at the same time, we were reducing some of the programs for kids because of COVID. So as adults, we can kind of process it a little bit more healthy in a more healthy way. As kids, it's not as easy. So in some respects, kids riding down the street, back talk to adults, you know, some of this we can kind of overlook and wave a finger at them and it go away. There's another category of what went on that was, you know, damage to private property. Some of it was very, very dangerous and it was destructive, and that's something where, you know, police need to get involved in that. And so my understanding is that has kind of quieted down. But how do you address this going forward? We have the Quincy Recreation Program. We have a whole variety of churches that have programs. We have athletics through Quincy baseball, soccer, and hockey and whatnot. There isn't really a cohesive plan to bring all of these different parties together. So I really think that we should be having a youth sort of powwow where we're bringing all the parties together that are working on youth programs and say, what do we really have in place structured for our kids from kindergarten through high school? What can we do to kind of give them positive direction? I'll tell you, I'm over my time, but, you know, the loss of the Panthers in Ward 2 was a big loss to our community, and hopefully we can get into that later.
All right, question 8. When the Fall River Clubhouse reopens, the city will be able to rethink the usage of this space. How would you like to see the city utilize it? Anthony. I'm sorry, Anthony's first, right? Steve is, I'm sorry.
And so the question is, how do we utilization of this building?
When the clubhouse is fully reopened,
Yeah.
how would you like to see the city utilize it?
Okay, so this isn't a question for me. This isn't about what I want. This is about what the people of Ward 2 want. So whatever the people of Ward 2 want, that's what I'm going to support, okay? So the first thing we need to do is get people together and talk about what do we want to see happen here. And there's been talk of senior center. Absolutely, there's certainly room here for senior centers, but with the last question, certainly we need to utilize this as a program for youth as well. And there's no reason that you can't have family programs that bring in all kinds of ages. So the clubhouse has been under construction for a long, long time, and a lot of this work is being done through funding that I helped bring to the city through the Community Preservation Act. So I'm very proud that we're finally making some progress here, but it's 10 years too late. It's taking 10 years too long to actually get this done. So we need to have a community discussion on what do we want to see for programming here at the Fall River Clubhouse. How does it want to be, how should it best be managed? How do we integrate what goes on here with the new beautiful playground that we have next door, which is seeing far less use now that we don't have the Panthers there. So the whole playground and clubhouse area needs to be a discussion. I think there's a whole wide range of things we could be doing with it, but it really needs to be an organic community discussion about how best to utilize this facility. So I'll yield my time. Thank you.
When the Fall River Clubhouse fully reopens, the city will be able to rethink the usage of this space. How would you like to see the city utilize it? Anthony.
Thank you. A few years ago, the City Council made a bond appropriation through the Capital Investment Plan for funding for the Fall River Clubhouse, and that's where the funding comes from for the renovations that you see here today. And I've been in touch with Paul Hines, Commissioner of Public Buildings, for basically the full year now, talking about all the work that needs to be done. We're doing roof work, we're doing the floors, we're redoing the bathrooms. There's a lot to be done to get this ready, and I really did hope that it would have been open at this point in time. But long term, as far as what should go here, I think it's very straightforward. We need a senior center, and I think we need a senior center here. Right now, the programming for our seniors is out at the Kennedy Center, over basically in Squantum. And Ward 2 has more seniors than any other ward within the city, and we make them drive across the city to get to those types of services, and I just don't think that's right. So long term, I would love to get together with the community and talk about the type of programming that could be here. Always open to adding something in addition to a senior center, but I think that would be a number one priority for myself moving forward. Thanks.
Question 9, Ward 2 has a large senior citizen community. How will you support this group and assist them in becoming and staying engaged with the community as a whole? I'll repeat the question. Ward 2 has a large senior citizen community. How will you support this group and assist them in becoming and staying engaged with the community as a whole? Anthony?
I feel like I just answered this question a little bit, so I don't know what else to say about it. But I'll say in terms of engagement, the past year has been really difficult for our seniors, especially the ones that are in our senior buildings. There are a lot more restrictions over there. They have to take far more health precautions. And it's just been really, really difficult for them. And now that the buildings have sort of opened up a little bit, I've been able to go, I've been able to say hello and just spend an afternoon saying hi. Moving forward, I know former Councilor Kroll used to do, pizza nights for Patriots games and things like that. But in terms of the senior buildings, or just our seniors, it's about showing up. That's really what it's about. It's about fostering that connection, making sure that they understand if they need something, they can reach out to you. And that's not just for our seniors, that's for any constituent. And I think that's something that I've worked really hard on and will continue to work hard on for everyone. Thanks.
I'll repeat question 9. Ward 2 has a large senior citizen community. How will you support this group and assist them in becoming and staying engaged with the community as a whole? Steve?
Thank you, Rich. So, yeah, as I mentioned before, this is would be a great facility for senior programming here. I think, my parents are turning, they're in their early 80s now. So this is something that it's becoming a real issue in my life right now. How do we handle issues for seniors? Yes, we need to talk to them. We need to be there for them. But also we need to make sure that they have the amenities that they need. We went through a period where Pegnano Tower, elevators weren't working for long periods of time. The conditions of the buildings were deplorable for a long period of time. And yeah, things have improved, but they haven't improved quite enough. And so the basic support system for them has to then be rebuttressed to really give them more support for the basic amenities of clean air, functioning elevators, programs at their own buildings. So getting in there, we can all come up with ideas, whether it be a pizza night or a poker night or whatever it is to engage them, but the basic necessities have to be taken care of first. And then I think the real issue is just integrating them and keeping them integrated into our society. We don't want it to be something where they're shunted or shunned in their senior buildings, but bringing them into our schools, running programs that bring the youth and the seniors together. I think this facility could help, but I think we could also utilize our schools and other parks around the city. So I guess I'm really disappointed in the city in the sense that just the voting. I mean, we're here for elections, right? We're here for voting, and now seniors now have to vote at Marshall Elementary, and I think that this is a mistake. I think there's some communication issues between the city and Thousand Southern Artery, but that used to be their voting location, and I think that was a great amenity. And so now asking them to mail in ballots to make it a little bit easier for them, that's something we've been working on. But I think that's an area where we kind of maybe missed the mark on providing a service for our seniors.
Okay, so now I'm going to ask personalized questions for each of the candidates. Steve, you're up first. So your wife is a current member of the school committee and is running to keep that seat. If you both get on, will that be a conflict of interest? Can you discuss how you will balance Ward 2 residents' concerns with the community that your wife would be representing? So I'm just going to repeat it one more time. Your wife is a current member of the school committee and is running to keep that seat. If you both get on, will that be a conflict of interest? Can you discuss how you will balance Ward 2 residents' concerns with the community that your wife would be representing?
Thank you. Okay, so conflict of interest, if my wife and I both are elected. I guess in a general sense, school committee and city council are fairly isolated. City council sort of defers to school committee for all items related to the schools, whether it be curriculum or busing or anything along those lines that are related to schools. That's really in the purview of the school committee. So I don't really see that there would be an issue there as far as what decisions the school committee makes. Those aren't really directly related to what the city council does. So the city council is going to allocate a certain amount of budget for the schools each year, and then the school committee makes a decision on how those funds are allocated. And it's the mayor who brings those items forward. On the city council, there are from time to time items that come up where a city councilor says, well, I have some interest in this and I have to recuse myself, or there's a state ethics board that they go to and can say, is there an ethical problem here? Do I need to recuse myself? And the state board will kind of weigh in on that. And so from time to time, a city councilor has to step back. The only thing I can really kind of think of where there might be a direct conflict of interest is if the school committee is asking for a raise or something for school committee members, and it goes to the city council to make that determination as to whether or not they would get a raise. They're paid a stipend each month. And so in a case like that, that would have a direct benefit to me and my family. So yeah, I would recuse myself from something like that. But other than that very specific issue, I really don't see an issue where there would be a direct conflict of interest between items that my wife might be working on and items that come in front of the city council. So, thank you.
Thanks, Steve. All right, Anthony, your question. You sought the Ward 2 council seat in the middle of your first term on the school committee. What can you tell the voters about your commitment and dedication to Ward 2 in this council position if another opportunity comes along? So one more time. Anthony, you sought the Ward 2 council seat in the middle of your first term on the school committee. What can you tell the voters about your commitment and dedication to Ward 2 in this council position if another opportunity comes along?
Thank you for the question. I do have to be upfront. I don't think I will be in the seat as long as Dan Raimondi was in the seat. So I have to get that out first. But yeah, I decided that an opportunity came up to step in and fill in for Councillor Kroll, and Councillor Kroll always did his best to represent the people of Ward 2. He got back to people when they reached out. He made sure that the ward was getting the attention it deserved from City Hall, and he was always sure to actually listen to the people when he was about to cast a vote. And I felt that Ward 2 deserved someone to continue on that high standard that's been set, not just by Councillor Kroll, but by Councillor Raimondi and Councillor De Cristofaro before that. And so I decided to step up. In terms of my commitment long term, I really like what I do. I like talking with people every single day about the issues that affect you. I like building a sense of community, and I really love the people of Quincy Point and Penns Hill. So I've really enjoyed my time here, and I can't say what the future will hold, but I can say that this is something that, an experience that I've always cherished and one that I'd like to continue doing for a long time. Thank you.
Thank you both for your answers to those questions. Those were our final formal questions, and we appreciate the answers that you've given us thus far. I do have a bonus question. You can each have 30 seconds to answer, and that is Frozen Freddy's or Dairy Queen. Okay, Steve? Steve? You have 30 seconds. Are you kidding me? How much time do you want? I'm kidding.
We got 30 seconds each. What's your favorite flavor? I mean, if you want to spend the 30 seconds, let's talk about something important.
I'm kidding. Okay. All right, those were the 10 formal questions that we had submitted via our Ward 2 Civic Association Gmail, Facebook page to either Nancy, myself, or Fiona personally. We put together a bunch of questions, looked at the issues that we thought were important to the constituents and to the voters, and I hope that the questions that we asked and the answers that you got are both and are all relevant to the November 2nd election. And I would like to thank both Councillor Andronico and candidate for Ward 2 City Council, Steve Perdios, for coming and for answering those questions that we crafted with the help of the constituents. I'm going to open it up to the audience, but I do have you know what, we'll open it up to the audience now. We'll have 10 minutes or so if anybody would like to ask a question that's here in the audience today. Okay, we'll start with you, sir. Do you want to come up and state your name?
I'm Jeff Haslett, lifelong 68 years on Jermaine Ave. First of all, frozen Fraser at the end of your street. It wouldn't melt before you get home. I have a wealth of questions and concerns, but rather than take up too much time, I disagree with the parking permits just around the MBTA stations. You drive down any street in Clinton Point at 7 o'clock, and if it's a two-lane street like Jermaine Ave is, one car can pass. I've had experiences going down the street where I have to back up, find a spot to get out of the way, and I'm pretty sure that the fire departments have an issue with this. That's a concern with me. Down my end by the dead end, it's not bad, but up near Washington Street, it's absolutely terrible. And I've driven by and seen driveways unused. I have one car and I have a driveway, but the concern with people, I think, is who's going out first in the morning to go to work, what car you have to move. It's not that much of an issue. And with heavy snowfall, it's horrendous. So I think one side should be enforced citywide. It'll bring income and teach people to park properly on the streets. I'll hold away other concerns to some other people.
Okay. Do either of you, would either of you like to respond to that? We can do a minute response if.
I'd be happy to talk about it.
Sure. Anthony will give you a minute, and then we'll give Steve a minute.
Yeah, I mean, this is what I hear when I go out. It's always an issue with parking. You got people who have 2, maybe even 3 cars, have a driveway, and then decide to use the street for a majority, if not all, of the cars, and it's really frustrating. As someone who does not have access to a driveway, and the people that live above us do, and sometimes they don't use their driveway, it does make for a frustrating situation. But I'd be more than happy to talk with you offline just about some things we can do. More than happy to send a letter to the community so we can get more feedback on it. Whenever someone raises a concern, especially a parking concern, what I do is I'll take that and work with them on a letter to send out to the neighborhood just to solicit some more feedback and come up together with a proposal that may work, and then alerting TPAL, the traffic department, know about the letter, make sure that the contact information for them is on there, to have them look at it as well to see what may be done. So in general, when it comes to parking issues, that's the approach that I take. Thank you.
Just to highlight, I mean, if you call the police, they ticket the whole street, and I don't want to do that to my neighbors.
I know, and they do have to enforce it evenly, so
Yeah.
that's the policy in place.
So Jeff, thank you for the question. Appreciate that. This is an issue citywide, okay, from one end of the city to the other, but we're concerned about Ward 2 here, and I'm hearing this issue on almost every street. Arnold Street, Ruggles Street that I live on, you can hear it on Keys, you hear it all the way up by Faxon Park, you hear it everywhere. So, and your concept of, one side parking sort of blanket wide for the city, I think that what you're going after is some solution that we can this is the solution and it works for everybody. It's something we should consider, but there are people that are going to say, well, I don't want all the cars on my side of the street. Why not put it on that side of the street? So then you'll have that whole discussion back and forth. So then do you say, well, even years you park on the even side, odd years you park on the odd side? There needs to be a discussion about some type of global resolution to this problem, okay? Because it is citywide. The police department are kind of stepping back because they don't want to come down and ticket everybody all the time. So you have to call them up and kind of coerce them to come down and say, okay, and they'll come down and they'll ticket at night. And I understand the concerns you have there about not wanting to do that to your neighbors, but there really needs to be a more blanketed look at how do we resolve this problem citywide. So I'm getting the sit down, Steve.
And just so everybody knows, where Quincy Access is taping today, we appreciate that. They have a hard cutoff at 12:30, so I just want to make sure that we keep everybody gets a chance to ask questions they want, and also that we keep it somewhat concise, because as things get longer, you lose engagement. So I believe we had another audience question from Helen Shiner.
So I appreciate both of your answers about affordable housing, but I do have a specific question for Steve. So the Affordable Housing Trust, you're proposing some changes to that should you be elected. So one of the things that concerns me, and I'd like to hear more about your opinion, is, as you know, the Affordable Housing Trust is used for more than just the creation of affordable housing. If we look back to the March storms, all the trouble we had in housing, the flooding, there was a substantial amount of money spent to relocate those homeowners temporarily. During the pandemic, part of that money was used to help prevent homelessness during the pandemic. So if you're proposing a transition of those funds solely to the creation of affordable housing units, how do you make up for what would be a shortfall within the city in cases of emergencies to help our existing residents not become homeless during this situation?
Great, great question. Thank you. So I'm not advocating for taking the Affordable Trust Fund and saying you can only use that for housing. I know that the Affordable Trust Fund has a benefit to a lot of people, and it does a lot of good things. What I'm saying is that developers that want to put in 8, 10, 12 units or a 20-story building, whatever they want to put in, they're now allowed to pay into the Affordable Housing Trust Fund in lieu of building affordable units. So they're building buildings that are zero affordable units. And the problem that we're having is that our affordable housing stock keeps dropping the more units we build that are not affordable. So we need to find a balance there to bring that number up, to create more affordable housing. So what I'm saying is anything 12% or less, when the city's affordable housing stock is at 12% or less, we remove that option for a developer to put money into the Affordable Housing Trust. Instead, we make them build 12% of their units affordable housing. Now, to address your other issue about what do we do in an emergency, our city budget is $350 million a year. I reject the premise that when somebody is in need, we can't give them whatever they need, okay? So as a city, we need to, number one, be responsive to people who are in an emergency situation. And I think we do a pretty good job there, but we need to make sure that we don't limit that, regardless of where the money comes from. That needs to be paramount. And then second of all, we need to increase our affordable housing stock. And we're both on the Community Preservation Act committee together. We know that the Community Preservation Act has been helping to create affordable housing in the city, although small, but it's been helping us somewhat. So thank you for the extra time.
Anthony, did you want to respond to that? No? Okay. Do we have any other audience questions for the candidates?
Jeff, if you have another question, go ahead.
So I get that as times standard. I'm not sure how many years ago that the beautification in Quincy Point along the Washington Street corridor was going to be implemented. We saw pictures and displays of fancy light fixtures, whatever, and also the talk of putting the wires underground, which would enhance people, companies, buildings coming in to populate this area. Where did that all go? That's what I'm wondering.
Anthony, did you want to answer that first?
I did see Nancy in the back give us the 10-minute signal, so I'll do my best just to keep this more quick. So my understanding is that project kind of got pushed to the side. To be very frank, you're fully aware of it. That's why you asked the question. But again, in terms of the Washington Street corridor, there's no trees there. The bike lanes that are over there, don't really encourage use. They're not separated from the road at all. It doesn't provide for a welcoming type of space. And again, it looks like the city doesn't care about this part of the city as opposed to maybe some other neighborhoods and some of their, we'll say, downtown business sectors. But again, it's conversations throughout the city, conversations with the mayor's office and the administration, and conversations with our parks department to actually push them on that to move us forward.
Jeff, again, thank you for the question. I think this goes directly to what I was saying earlier. We're seeing a lot of the power base in the city is up at the northern end of the city, and we need a little passion down here to get what we deserve down here in Ward 2. And I think the Washington Street corridor is a perfect example of that not happening. So it needs to be, we can walk and chew gum at the same time, okay? We can redevelop the downtown, and we need to be able to fix the Washington Street corridor. We need to be able to do more than one thing at a time. And so we need to bring definitely some systemic improvements along the corridor. So 100%, that's a problem. It'll be something that, you know, I'll put a fire underneath it if I can get elected. Thank you very much.
If it's money, we can put toll on the braces.
There you go. I love that idea.
I will just say, Jeff, I'm not sure if you know this, but the Ward 2 Civic Association was included in the fiscal year budget from the state. We received $25,000, and I'm waiting to hear back from Speaker Mariano's office as to what we can do with that, what the strings are, and the beautification project, as you say, on Washington Street is, you know, top of the list if we can use it for those purposes. So thank you. Okay. We will, if seeing no other questions from the audience, we will give each of the candidates 90 seconds to close. Since Anthony started with the openings, Steve will do the first closing.
So we've talked a lot today about a lot of different issues, and I'm gonna wrap up by just summarizing some of my promises that I'm making to the citizens of Ward 2 if I'm elected. First of all, returning your phone calls and your emails. I promise to make every phone call, return every phone call and email within 24 hours. And your issue doesn't close by me. Your issue gets closed by you. When you're satisfied that we've addressed your issue, then we close up the issue. Otherwise, I commit to working on with you on a weekly basis. I've made a commitment to keep our taxes low. I'm calling on our city to do a 2-year moratorium on tax increases. We have development in every corner of the city. Every time there's a new development that goes in, that brings a little bit more money into the city coffers. There's no reason why the homeowners can't get a little bit of a break after all the development and traffic that we've had to put up with. So I'm calling on the city to 2 years. I'll work with my fellow city councilors if I'm able to get on to work to put a cap for the next 2 years, no increase in property taxes, and I won't vote for any budget that does that. You know, I'll just sum up. I see him back. I only have about 10 seconds. I'm a homeowner. I'm a taxpayer. I'm a husband and a father. I'm a lifelong resident of Ward 2. My background as a community volunteer and activist gives me some unique qualifications to be a next Ward 2 city councilor, and I'm committed to being responsive to your issues. I'll work hard every day to make your issues my issues. Thank you very much.
Well, I just want to say thank you again to the Ward 2 Civic Association for all the hard work. I know it's not easy putting these on. I want to thank you all for being here today, and I want to thank those at home who are watching on QA TV a little later on. So just in general, you know, when I think about some of the issues that we're going to face together over the next couple of years, it'll be keeping Quincy affordable, ensuring Ward 2 gets its fair share of funding for roads, parks, and city services, and bringing public input to spending and development decisions. And I think it's really important to have someone who actually knows how to bring people together and get things done within a government structure. And that's on the local level, it's on the state level. And it's exactly what I've done throughout my career in public service, whether it's on the school committee, as a communications director in the state senate, or as your ward councilor. And it's that type of experience that's led me to have earned the endorsement of the Norfolk County Labor Council, IABEW Local 103, Bricklayers Local 3, Ironworkers Local 7, Carpenters Local 346, Plumbers and Gas Fitters Local 12, and Laborers Local 133. And overall, my approach to government is straightforward and level-headed. I believe everyone should have a seat at the table, that each constituent concerned, big or small, deserves the same level of urgency, and there's always more that we can do to improve our neighborhoods. I think we're just getting started, and if we continue to work together and fight for Quincy families, then we can make Ward 2 in the city of Quincy a better place to live, to work, and to raise a family. So I humbly ask for your vote on Tuesday, November 2nd, and I thank you again for your time.
Okay, that is going to conclude our candidates talk. Again, thank you all for joining. Thank you to Coffee Break for the generous donation of donuts and coffee in the back there. I hope that you all stay tuned to the Ward 2 Civic Association's Facebook page. We have a new website that's being developed as we speak. We had a great community forum last month with some officials and our community police officer, Margaret LaForest, who's heading up some exciting stuff with the USS Salem. I hope you all tuned into that. It's been recorded. I'm sure it's on QATV, and it's also on our Facebook page. Just stay tuned. And I want to thank Councilor Andronico and candidate for City Council, Steve Perdios, for joining us. I hope this was beneficial to everybody. We will post this online as soon as it's done, and you'll see it on QATV. Thank you.